female officer who's with it. No, it's okay.
All right, Ms. Rivers, can you hear us and are you ready?
Yes, I can, Judge. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. This is, and we'll bring Ms. Brown out. Is it Brown-Moore or Brown?
Brown-Moore.
Brown-Moore. We'll bring Ms. Brown-Moore out in just a moment. Is there anything we need to cover procedurally before we dive into this, Mr. Abate? Okay, Ms. Gordon?
Judge, I did file a motion last week asking the court to allow us to present the testimony of one witness via Zoom.
Let's have your client out here for that. So we can talk about that. I just wasn't sure if there's anything we needed to talk about before we got to that.
Without her, Judge.
Okay, if we can bring her out when you're ready, please. One second. Okay. This is 23 SC 186557. It's State versus Destiny Brown-Moore. And we are here with Ms. Brown-Moore present along with her lawyer, Ms. Gordon, and Ms. Gordon's colleague, Ms. Wood. Representing the state is Mr. Abate. And we have a motion, an immunity motion that Ms. Gordon filed on behalf of Ms. Brown-Moore that alleges that Ms. Brown-Moore acted in self-defense when she shot and ultimately killed the deceased in this case. So that's what we're going to work through. A couple procedural things. Unless something's changed, I assume we're not taking a plea today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so Ms. Jackson, I appreciate you being here on behalf of pretrial, but we are not going to need your services, so you are free to stay on, but you can go do other pretrial-ish things if you'd like.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. See you soon. Second, Ms. Gordon had filed a motion or notified both me and the prosecution that there was a witness that she wanted to call virtually through this Zoom session we've got going for this hearing. Remind me who that witness is and generically what this witness would be testifying to, because as I understand the facts, the only person who can talk about what went down between your client and the deceased would be your client. There's not an immediate eyewitness. So whoever it is you have in mind could be an outcry witness or whatnot, but not someone who could say, well, actually, the knife was here and then the gun was there.
That's right, Judge, and I would classify her, I guess, as an outcry witness. She is actually Destiny's sister.
Mhm.
She lives in the state of New York. I expect that on the state's cross of my client, after she testifies on direct, they will likely try to impeach her in terms of lack of truthfulness. This witness, Miss Jessica Brown, would be a prior consistent statement witness, essentially. Destiny called her on the phone very shortly after the August 2020 incident and told her about what happened. So that's what she would be testifying to.
Okay. Mr. Abate, do you have any objection for the purposes of these proceedings only, and now understanding the context in which Ms. Brown from New York would be testifying to her remote participation?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So assuming Ms. Gordon, you can make that happen, I'd ask that she not dial in and she not follow the YouTube feed of this. That you'll need to have someone from your team communicate to her. She needs to not be, this is a watchable event. She needs to not be watching it. We can either have her plug in now and I can put her in a breakout room, or when we reach a natural break point, you could have her log on, if that would be a pretty quick process. Some folks, it takes 10 minutes for them to make their phone screen go on or whatever. So I leave that up to you.
Judge, what I will do is I'll have co-counsel give her a call. And if the court would allow us a couple minutes to just talk with her and see what her preference would be in terms of timing.
Well, we can get going. Ms. Wood can do that. And then if we need to pause to get that answer, we can do that. Or someone can just say she's going to dial in now, and then I'll put her in a breakout room. So we can work that. However, I don't think we need to delay the start of your presentation of evidence for that. So we can plan scheduling wise. You have your client, Ms. Brown Moore, that you'll call. Maybe Ms. Brown from New York, if we can get her patched in. Other witnesses, or those are the two?
One other witness, Judge, Miss Valerie Moore, another sister of Destiny's. I just had her step out as well. She may be testifying as well. Her testimony will be similar to that of Miss Brown from New York.
Okay. So maximum 3 witnesses as you forecast it now.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Abate, do you plan on calling any witnesses, or the state's cases through cross-examination?
The plan is that we do cross-examination. I do have 3 witnesses that go on standby.
Okay.
One is Officer Williams, then there's Sergeant Benton, and I'm sorry, it's 4, and then Sergeant Layton, and the medical examiner, Karen Solo.
Is Officer Williams as I'm remembering from the bond hearing, at some point, Ms. Brown Moore had a relationship with a police officer and there was a disclosure, and now we have this indictment. Is that who Officer Williams is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. I will need to stop pretty close to 5. So if we don't finish, we'll figure out a time to keep going. Normally, I would try to get all this in today. And so if that meant we would go to 6-ish, I mean, I need to accommodate everyone else's schedule as well. But it's not that at 5 o'clock sharp, a red light's going to go on. I have to run out of here, but we'll need to wrap up kind of close to 5 o'clock. So I'll probably be touching base as we approach that to see if there's a natural break point. If we don't finish things today, then I'll have Ms. Nelson work with your schedules so that we can have part 2 pretty close in time to this, so that they stay connected in everyone's heads. Okay. All right. When you're ready, Ms. Gordon.
Judge, since you've already heard a sort of outline of the facts of the case during the bond motion, I'll forego an opening statement for the purpose of this hearing, and I will call Ms. Destiny Brown Moore to the stand.
All right. Ms. Brown Moore, if you will follow the deputy up to the stand or follow her directions.
Excuse me, Mr. Abadi, can you turn your microphone on, please? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that.
Which computer? The one, the main podium one?
No,
Mr. Abate's is down?
I don't need it.
Did he break it?
it's a network. We
I have-
just cut it off and cut it back on.
Hadn't touched it today.
I hear you fine.
Okay, he can be heard if there aren't gonna be, are there gonna be lots of exhibits that Mr. Abate would need to see on the screen there?
No.
Okay, great. I always get nervous when Deputy Gordon is touching buttons on our equipment. Okay, he steps away from it. All right. I'll see if I can add it. Is it, what's on the screen?
Your face with
Well, why would you want to change that?
connecting to network.
Okay,
I have two computers that are connected, so I'm okay.
right. I just, for future reference, that'll need to work. So I may in the background see if I can connect it, but we need not delay any further. So let's swear in the witness, please.
Raise your right hand for me. You swear affirm the testimony you give today before the court is the truth, the whole truth, and none but the truth, so help you God. Yes. Lower your hand, please state your first and last name and spelling for the court.
Destiny Brownmore, DESTINY BROWN-MOORE.
Thank you. Is that mic on?
It is, you're going to need to get close to it, Ms. Brownmore. The chair does not have,
The host that's silent.
yeah, can you touch the stay muted? Great, okay.
Okay, great. So Destiny, when you're answering questions, just try to get close to that mic and make sure everybody can hear you. Destiny, are you the defendant in this case that we're here for today?
Yes.
And what's your understanding of what you're charged with in this case?
Murder felony, aggravated assault, and false statement.
What was the date, if you recall it, of the alleged incident in this case?
August 29th, 2020.
2020?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to pause you for one moment, Ms. Brownmore. Ms. Rivers, are you able to hear Ms. Brownmore, or do we need to work on getting closer to the microphone?
I can hear her well.
Great, we'll keep going.
Destiny, if you could tell the court just kind of an overview of what your life looked like during that time period around August of 2020.
I was at a party stage. I was hanging out on the weekends.
How old were you in August of 2020?
29.
Okay. And were you working?
I was doing photography at that time, freelance.
Freelance photography. And were you single or married in a relationship?
I'm single.
Single?
Yes.
Did you have any children at that time?
Yes.
How many?
One,
One, and son or daughter?
a daughter.
And how old was she in August of 2020?
She was 2.5.
Okay. Where were you living during that time?
I was staying in Clayton County.
And who were you living with?
Myself.
I gotta pause for 1 second. Do we know who John Abate is?
He used my computer. It's my brother. I
Okay.
signed into the
Okay.
Zoom and it happened to be his name as well. I apologize.
No, I don't mind. I just want to make sure we didn't have a potential witness plugged in. Keep going.
So you said you were living in Clayton County and you were living by yourself?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of education did you have at that point in your life?
At some college. At CNA experience and also cosmetology.
When you say CNA, what does that stand for?
A CNA nurse, certified nursing assistant. I'm sorry.
Okay. CNA experience and cosmetology?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you were working doing freelance photography.
Yes.
What kind of photography were you doing?
Freelance portrait photography.
Portraits.
At that
Okay.
time.
All right. Did you have any family in the area during that time?
Yes.
Who?
My sister Valerie
Your sister Valerie. And where did she live at that time?
in East Point.
in East Point.
Is Valerie the sister who's now in New York or the sister who's now outside?
She's in the hallway.
Okay.
Now, Destiny, were you struggling with anything in your life at that point?
Yes.
Tell the court a little bit about that.
I was struggling with an addiction to cocaine.
And how long had that been going on?
For a couple months at that time.
Let's move on to talking about August 29th of 2020. I want you to start sort of from the beginning and tell the court what you did that day.
So my night started on August 28th. I went to Jack's Pizza and Wings that is in Little Five Points on Highland. I went there by myself and I stayed there till about 2 a.m.
While you were there, did you have anything alcoholic to drink?
Yes,
Do you know about how many drinks you had?
probably just one.
Just one drink. And how long were you there, do you think?
About 2 hours probably.
Okay. You said you went by yourself.
Yes.
Did you hang out with anybody while you were there?
Just the regulars that would be there.
Okay.
People I see every weekend.
Okay. So were you a regular there?
Yes.
Okay. What'd you do after, you said you stayed there until they closed or until 2 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay. What'd you do after that?
From there, I went to Pal's Lounge, which is downtown. It's
Do you know the streets that's on?
Auburn and Bell.
Okay. And let me back up for a second. How were you getting yourself around that night?
In my vehicle.
Okay. And what kind of vehicle was that?
A cream Acura.
Okay.
So next you went to, you said Pal's Lounge.
Yes.
Did you say green or cream?
Cream.
Cream Acura. Okay.
And did you go to Pal's with anyone?
No.
Okay. What time do you think you got there?
Got there about 2:33 a.m.
Okay. And how long were you there?
I was there till about 5:20 to 5:30 a.m.
Were they open that whole time?
Yes.
And had you been there before?
Yes.
Okay. Before you went into Pal's, where did you park?
I parked on Jesse Hill Drive.
About how far is that from Pal's?
It was 2 rights.
So from your car to Pal's, you had to walk and take 2 right turns?
Okay, from my car to Pal's, it was 2 lefts.
Okay, gotcha. So like a couple blocks, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hang out with anyone while you were at Pal's?
Yes.
Who'd you hang out with?
The regulars that would be there every weekend.
Okay. Were you a regular there also?
Yes.
All right.
Is
And-
this a different group of regulars than at Jack's, or does everyone from Jack's at 2 a.m. drive to Pal's?
Yes.
So it's many of the same people.
Yes.
You at Jack's say, I'll see you in 20 minutes. And then people get themselves to Pal's and then you're together again.
Yes.
From Jack's to Pal's, did you still drive by yourself or did anybody come with you?
I drove by myself.
Okay. And did you have anything alcoholic to drink while you were at Pal's?
Yes.
About how many drinks do you think you had?
About 1 or 2.
1 or 2. So your estimation is that you had about 3 drinks all night.
Yes.
Okay. And were you using any drugs that night?
Probably so.
Okay. What
Yes.
drugs would those have been?
Okay.
Why do you say probably so? Because you don't remember, it's not comfortable talking about it, or it would be typical for you to have done that at that point in your life?
Yes. It would have been typical.
So you don't have a specific recollection of using, but if there was someone who said, hey, she used that night, that wouldn't surprise you.
I Yeah, I used that night.
Okay.
I did.
And would that have been at Jack's or at Pal's or on the ride in between? Or before you went out that night?
At Palace, definitely.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have any weapons on your person that night?
No,
No. Did you have any weapons with you anywhere that night?
yes.
What were those?
I had my gun, which was in my car,
Where in your car?
and my sunroof.
In your sunroof. Explain that a little bit more.
My Acura, it was a 2002 Acura, so this kind of sunroof it was, you can pull the door back to roll the window down and press the button and the window will roll down. So I would keep my gun up there, so just in case somebody broke into my glove compartment, they wouldn't take it from my glove compartment.
So just so I'm clear, I want to make sure I understand, there's the glass of the sunroof that you push the button, but before you push the button, you have to pull back the cover.
Yes,
And the gun was in between the cover and the glass.
yes,
Got it. Did you have any other weapons?
yes.
What was that?
My knife,
What kind of knife?
it was a knife I got from Walmart
Okay. And where did you have that?
in my car,
Where in your car?
on my car door.
In the car door?
Yes,
Like the side pocket of the car door?
yes,
Okay.
Of the driver's door?
yes.
And what was the purpose? Why did you have those weapons with you?
I kept my gun in my car just in case an emergency,
Okay.
and my knife. I had it from when I went fishing.
Okay. Had you ever used either of those weapons against another person before?
No,
Okay. You said you were at Pal's until about 5:20 or 5:30 a.m.
mhm,
Was it still dark outside when you left?
yes,
Okay. Who did you leave with?
nobody.
By
Myself.
yourself? Okay. And what did you do when you left Pal's?
When I left Pals, I took a right onto Auburn Ave, and I took another right onto Jesse Hill Drive
Okay. And where were you headed?
to my car.
To your car. So you took a right on Auburn, you took a right on Jesse Hill, and then what?
And then the closer I got to my car, I began to walk into the street because the driver's side of the car was facing towards the street.
Okay, so the way your car was parked, the driver's side was on the street side and the passenger side was against the curb?
Yes,
Okay. And so you said you began walking sort of in the street because you were going to get into the driver's side?
yes.
Okay. And then what?
While I was walking, the closer I got to my car, a man began trying to get my attention.
Was that man on foot or in a car?
He was in a car,
What kind of car was he in?
a dark colored car.
Okay. Had you ever seen him before?
No,
When you say he tried to get your attention, describe that. What did he do or say to try to get your attention?
he was like beeping and screaming out the window.
Do you remember what he was saying out the window?
No.
Okay. What happened next?
Then I continued to walk to my car, and I opened my car door. I got in my car. I started my car. I lit a cigarette and I rolled down my window. And I saw that the guy was still trying to get my attention.
What was he doing at that point to try to get your attention?
He pulled his car to the side of the street that I was on, and he reversed and he double parked next to my car facing the opposite direction of the street and blocking my car in.
Okay. Was his, when you say he was double parked next to your car, was his car right next to your car? Okay.
Yes.
And were there other cars parked on the street?
Excuse me?
Do you remember if there were other cars parked on the street where your car was parked?
Yes,
There were. Okay. Was there a car in front of your car?
yes,
Was there a car behind your car?
yes.
Okay. When he pulled up next to you, was his driver's side or his passenger side next to your driver's side?
His driver's side.
Okay, so he pulls up next to you, his driver's side is facing your driver's side. At that point, you're in your car with the window rolled down?
Yes.
And what happened next?
He got out of his car to talk to me, and I was flattered with his persistence.
Say that one more
I was
time?
flattered with his persistence, so I decided to talk to him.
Okay, when you say he got out to talk to you, what was the nature of that talking?
He told me I was pretty, and he told me his name. So then I got out my car to speak to him.
Okay, at that point, when you're both out of your cars, can you describe physically like how your body was and his body and the cars?
I was standing in the doorway of my car. Half of my body was in the door, the other half was outside the door. He was standing in front of me.
Okay, so your car door, your driver's side door was open
Yes.
and you were kind of in between sort of,
I'm gonna object to leading, Your Honor.
You're in a complicated space. I think we all want to understand exactly where she was standing. So I think you're free to describe something and then ask, is this what you're saying? Just make sure it's not so structured that the answers are just yes, yes, yes. So I'm overruling it for now, but I understand Mr. Abate's concern.
yes, Judge, thank you.
I'm gonna ask a question because I'm confused.
Go ahead.
As I understand it, you would be standing in the triangle that's created by your open door and the side of your car, so that your back is to where you would sit in the car. Is that correct?
I was in between my car and the car door.
Right?
And so my back is against the car,
Against the car or the car door?
against my car, not the car door, just the car.
So you're leaning against or standing up against what would be just behind the driver's door space.
Yes.
Okay, and your door is open. Okay, so someone could stand next to you and be in that space right where you'd get in the car.
No, I was in between the door. I was like right there.
Okay, you could reach out and touch your car door.
Yes.
And the person who wanted to talk with you and who had flattered you with his persistence, he's directly in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. And is his car right behind him? Or did he move his car once you started talking?
His car is right behind me.
Okay.
Right behind him. Yes.
Could you say in inches or in feet about how far you think his body was from your body at that time while you were talking?
About 2 feet.
2 feet, okay. And how long, what did y'all talk about?
We spoke about, he told me his name.
Do you remember what his name was?
No. I told him my name is Amore. I'm a photographer, that I'm from Brooklyn.
Now, you said your name was what?
Amore?
And that's not the same as Destiny, right?
No,
How come you told him Amore?
because that's my nickname.
Okay,
It means love in Italian.
okay. What else?
He told me that he wasn't from here, and he just kept telling me how pretty I was and that I looked like a model. Yes,
Okay. About how long do you think that conversation went on?
for about 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay. During those 20 to 30 minutes, did you see anybody else around on that street or in that area?
Yes, it was people driving by.
Okay. Was anybody walking by?
I don't remember seeing anybody walking.
Okay. During those 20 or 30 minutes, did you have any physical contact with him?
No,
Okay. How tall are you?
5'6",
Did you say you were you about the same height in 2020 as you are now?
about.
Okay,
Yes.
5'6". And how much do you think you weighed roughly in 2020?
Probably 135, 140.
Okay. And how tall was the man you were talking to?
He wasn't taller than me. He was either my size or a little bit shorter.
Okay. And how big was he?
He was stocky, kind of.
Okay. Did you perceive him as bigger or smaller than you?
Bigger.
Bigger. Okay. After that 20 to 30 minute conversation, what happened next?
That's when he asked me if I wanted to go back. He told me he had a room at the Ritz-Carlton, and he asked me if I wanted to go back to his room with him.
And how did you respond to that?
I told him I want to call a friend to see if a friend would come with me.
And did you do that?
Yes.
And what happened when you made that call?
I called my friend on Instagram. She didn't answer.
Okay. And what happened after you made that call and she didn't answer?
After that, I told him that I'm not going with him. And I told him next time or something. And then before I could even turn around to get into my car, that's when he started choking me.
Okay. When you told him that you were not going to go with him to his hotel, did he say anything?
I don't remember him saying anything.
Okay. When you say he started choking you, can you describe that in detail for the court?
He started choking me. He put his hands around my neck and he pushed me into my car. And he said, "Give me that pussy, give me that pussy." And I was in my car, and my neck was on the middle armrest, and my head was facing towards the passenger seat. And he was on top of me, and I didn't move at all.
Hold on one sec, Ms. Brownmore. We're getting some Kleenex for you.
I didn't move.
So I need to rewind a little bit. So you said he was on top of you. You were laying in your car because he had pushed you in there, and your neck was on those armrests in the middle, and you were facing the passenger seat.
Yes.
Okay.
How was your torso? Where was your torso in the car?
It was like on the driver's seat.
And were you on your back, on your side, on your front?
I was on my back.
Okay. What happened next?
He was on top of me and I didn't move. And then he started to touch my vagina. And that's when I reacted.
What body part was he using to touch your vagina?
His hand.
Okay. At that point, did he still have a hand on your neck?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you reacted. What
Yes.
did you do next?
I struggled to get my hand free, my left hand, and I punched him in the face. I hit him twice.
Okay.
Why would your hand not have been free? If you're lying on your back and he's on top of you with a hand on your neck and another hand elsewhere, tell me why you had to struggle to get your hand free.
Because my arm, this side of my body was against the driver's seat.
So that's the left side. What about the right?
I'm left-handed, so I just went for my left hand first.
Okay, you're left-handed.
As all this was happening, how were you feeling in that moment, in those moments?
I was scared.
You punched him in the face?
Yes.
What happened after that?
Then he backed up. And once he backed up, I jumped up and I closed my car door. And I grabbed the knife that was in my car door.
When you closed your car door, was the window still open?
Yes.
Okay, so you grabbed the knife, and where was he at that moment?
He was outside of my car.
Outside of your car?
Yes.
And where was his car?
It was still locking my car in.
Same place. What happened next?
He then jumped into my car window and he grabbed my hand.
Which
And
hand did he grab?
My left hand.
And where was the knife?
It was in my hand.
In your left hand?
Yes.
Okay, so he grabbed your hand and then what?
He grabbed with one arm, he held my arm against the door. And the other arm he was using to try to pry this knife out of my hand.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, he had one of his hands was pinning your arm against the door,
Yes.
and with the other hand, he was trying to get the knife.
Yes.
Okay. Was he, at this point, was he saying anything to you?
He wanted the knife out of my hand. He said, "I see you."
He said, "I see you."
Yes. He's like, "I see you."
And what did you understand that to mean?
He saw me grab my knife.
Okay. What happened next?
Then he's just trying to pry this knife out of my hand. He's just in my car trying to get this knife out of my hand.
When you say he's in your car, meaning he's leaning in through the open driver's window, or he is now also all the way inside the car?
He's leaning in through the window.
So his feet are on the ground outside the car and he's leaning in, and what you've described, he's pinned your arm against the side of the door and he's trying to get the knife.
Yes.
Okay. What happened next?
So he's just stood there and he's trying to get this knife out of my hand. And I could see him looking, he's looking outside of the car. And he started to look back and forth to see if anybody was looking and if anybody could see what was going on. And
I'm going to ask you this periodically. How did you feel in that moment?
I was afraid for my life.
What happened next?
Once I saw that nobody was about to come help me, because he's looking and he's just, I could tell that he wanted to hurt me.
That he wanted?
He wanted to hurt me. Nobody was coming. It was cars driving by and nobody could see me. So then I start to reach for my gun because I'm fighting for my life. I'm holding this knife for my dear life. So I reach for the gun that's in the sunroof
With which hand?
with my right hand.
And was the knife still in your left hand?
Yes.
And when you went to reach for the gun with your right hand, where were his hands?
It was still in my car. It was holding my hand.
Okay.
So I reach for my gun. I slide the door back. And the gun falls into my cup holder. So now I'm trying to feel around my cup holders to find my gun. Once I find it, I let go of the knife in my hand. I screamed, no, and I start shooting.
Do you remember how many shots you fired?
No,
When you grabbed the gun from your cup holder, right before you started shooting, where were his hands?
it was in my car.
Were they on you?
Yes,
Once you fired the gun, what happened next?
that's when he got into his car and he pulled off.
Could you tell if he was injured?
No,
Let me back up for a second. During this whole interaction that you just described, did his car move at all until after you fired those shots?
no,
Okay. Would you have been able to drive away with his car parked the way that it was?
no,
Okay.
So there was a car in front of your Acura and a car behind your Acura. To get out, you'd have to do sort of the reverse of parallel parking, but his car was in the way.
So you saw him get in his car, and did you say drive off?
yes.
And what happened next?
Once he pulled off, I pulled off.
Okay. And did you see anything else that happened with him?
When I got to the end of the block, I checked my rearview mirror to see if he was following me. And once I looked in the mirror,
I couldn't hear that last part. You said you see if he was following you and
I looked in the mirror and I saw him crash into a
crash into a,
building.
Okay. Let me back up again for a moment. Do you know or remember where that knife ended up?
No,
Okay. I think you said, did you say that you let go of it right when you fired the shots?
yes,
Okay. Do you know if it ended up in your car?
no, I never found it.
You never found it?
No,
Okay. So going forward again, you said you saw him crash, and then what did you do?
I screamed and I drove.
Okay. And in that moment, how are you feeling?
I was afraid. I was,
This might sound like a silly question after what you've just told us, but why were you afraid?
because I almost got raped. I could have died.
Where did you head to at that point?
I was just driving.
And did you speak with anyone after this happened?
I called my sister,
which sister?
Jessica Brown.
That's the New York sister?
Yes,
And did you tell her what happened?
yes,
Did you tell her the same thing you just told us here?
yes.
Okay. And where did you go next?
Then I went to my sister Valerie's house.
Okay. And what happened there?
I had the key at that time. I opened the door. She met me at the door because it was unusual for me to come there at that point in time
Why was it unusual for you to go there at that point in time?
because I wasn't living there.
Okay. And did you tell Valerie what happened?
Yes, briefly.
Briefly.
Yes,
Okay.
About what time would you say it was when you got to Valerie's house? Still dark out or now light out?
it was still dark.
How long were you at Valerie's?
Not long at all.
And where'd you go after that?
I went to Clayton County, where I was staying in my hotel.
Okay, you were staying in a hotel at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do when you got there?
Point, I thought about turning myself in.
Before we go further with that, I want to go back to your stop at your sister Valerie's house. It sounded to me, and I don't want to misinterpret it, that you were saying that you told your sister Jessica the whole story, lots of detail. With your sister Valerie, you didn't go into lots of detail. Is that, or did I misunderstand you? Yes, I misunderstood you? Okay, so Valerie got sort of a summary of what happened. Jessica got much more information. Why did you stay at your sister Valerie's house for just a little bit of time?
I went there, it was like, because that's what I'm used to calling home. It was like my reaction to everything. I wanted to go home. And
But after you told her what happened, she didn't say, oh my gosh, you should stay here, go lie down? Or did she go to your hotel room?
I don't know what she said.
Okay.
What was your relationship with Valerie like during that time?
We weren't as close as we used to be
Okay. And why was that?
because we got into a whole big thing about her watching my daughter, and I felt like she was part of the reason why I was out there at that time.
Before Judge McBurney asked you a question, I think you said when you went back to your apartment, your hotel, you thought about turning yourself in.
Mhm.
Tell the court a little bit about what was going through your head at that point.
I was trying to figure out what to do. I didn't know what to do. So I was looking online and I was looking up self-defense and how it works. And it said that it would be hard to prove that you have that it was self-defense. And I got scared.
Is that why you didn't turn yourself in?
Yes.
At some point after that night, that morning, did you tell someone else about what happened?
No.
No? You never told anybody else about what happened that night? Or that morning?
That day?
No, not that day. Later on in time.
Yes.
Okay. Who else did you tell?
My daughter's father,
Your daughter's father. What's his name?
Jeffrey Williams.
Okay. And when was the first time that you told him about this incident?
It was around September, the beginning of September,
Of what year?
2020.
So the next month.
Mhm.
Okay. And tell the court, well, where did that conversation take place?
In Stockbridge at his father's house,
Was anyone else present?
his wife.
His wife.
And I apologize, at whose house? I
His
didn't,
father's house in Stockbridge? That's what you said? Yes. Okay.
And what made you bring this up with him that day?
I wanted him to know what happened to me. I wanted him to know.
Okay. And did you tell him the same thing that you told us today?
Yes.
Okay.
And whatever you told Mr. Williams, his wife would have heard as well because she was right there with him, or she just happened to be in the house?
It was right there with him.
Okay, so you told two people effectively.
Yes.
Was there another time when you again talked to Jeffrey Williams about this incident?
Yes.
And when was that?
In 2022. 2022.
Okay. And tell the court about that conversation.
At that time, I called him because I had been wanting to confess to turn myself in, but I didn't know how to.
And what was his job at that time?
A police officer
He was a police officer. Do you know where?
in DeKalb County,
Do you know how long he had been a police officer at that time?
about a year or so.
Okay. So was he a police officer the first time you told him about this?
No.
Okay. But when you called him in 2022, you knew that he was a police officer.
Yes.
Okay. And you said you called because you wanted to figure out how to
Yes.
turn yourself in?
I told him I needed help. I asked him to help me.
Okay. And what was his response?
I don't think he knew what I meant by it.
Were you still struggling with substance abuse at that time?
Yes.
Okay. During that conversation in 2022, did you tell him the truth about what happened in 2020?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you
That was-
have given Mr. Williams more information or less information than you did when you told him in September of 2020?
More.
And were you aware at any point during that phone call in 2022 with Mr. Williams, if that phone call was being recorded?
Yes.
Tell the court about that.
I knew it was being recorded because when we had an incident earlier that year, he came to my house and that was recorded. He had a body cam on him, so I knew he had a body cam on him at all times while he was on duty.
Okay. And did you know for sure that during this phone conversation in 2022 that his body cam was actively recording?
Yes,
How did you know that?
he told me.
He told you. Okay. Did he say anything during that conversation in 2022 about what he was going to do with the information you had shared with him?
No.
Okay. And do you remember what month in 2022 that conversation took place?
May.
May of 2022. Okay. When, after that conversation in 2022 with Jeffrey Williams, when was the next time that you talked to someone or were confronted about this case?
Investigator Jim Thorpe. He called me like the next morning. I spoke to him.
Investigator Thorpe called you the morning after the May 2022 conversation?
Yes.
And do you know what agency he was with?
I'm assuming it's Fulton County.
Fulton County, okay. And what was the result of that conversation?
I told him that I didn't know what he was talking about.
You told him that you didn't know what he was talking about.
Yes.
When you say what he was talking about, what was that?
about, I guess, the message that he got that I wanted to turn.
So did he ask you about this case, the August 2020 incident?
Yes,
Okay. And you said, I don't know what you're talking about.
yes,
Why did you say that?
because I was scared.
Scared of what?
Of what would happen next.
Ah.
I didn't hear that.
Of what will happen next.
So I'm following this. In some point in May of last year, you tell Mr. Williams more about what happened in August of 2020. And you think you're letting him know as well, but you think he didn't necessarily understand. You want to turn yourself in. You know he's recording it. The next day, investigator Thorpe calls, and effectively, these may not have been the same words. Hey, I want to talk to you about these things you talked to Officer Williams about. And you said, I don't know what you're talking about. Those weren't the exact words, I'm sure, but that was sort of the summary of how it worked. Okay, and you said that because you were afraid of what would happen. Okay.
So after that call with Thorpe, when was the next time that you were confronted with anything about this case?
And on December 20th, 2022,
What happened on December 20th, 2022?
the U.S. Marshals came to my house.
And what did they do?
They arrested me for homicide.
Okay. And where did they take you?
To, I guess, the investigation office or something, the investigation building,
Where were you living in December of last year?
East Point, Georgia.
At your sister's house or a different place?
My sister's house, but she had moved out and she left me the apartment.
Okay, so where you had driven the morning of this incident, Valerie's place, was now your place.
Yeah.
Had anything in your life changed between May and December of 2022?
Yes,
What?
I got sober. I started working a job. I now had an apartment. I was getting things back right with my daughter.
With what?
With my daughter,
So things were going pretty well for you?
yes.
What happened when you got arrested and went into the police station?
I spoke to Jim Thorpe.
And what happened during that conversation?
He asked me about what happened that day.
What did you tell him?
Told him that I didn't do it. That's what the words I used.
Were you honest with him?
No,
Why not?
I was afraid
What were you afraid of?
that I was gonna lose everything I just got.
What was the job you had in December of last year?
I was working at HelloFresh.
Destiny, looking back on that night or that morning in August of 2022, I'm sorry, in August of 2020, how does it make you feel now?
And I'm gonna object to relevance at this point.
What is, how Ms. Brownmore feels now, as opposed to in particular, how she felt when this guy, allegedly Mr. Hudnall, was allegedly assaulting her. That I get, but what's the relevance?
I'll ask a different question, Judge.
Okay.
On that night or that morning in August of 2020, what was your greatest fear about what could have happened that night?
I could have been raped or died.
Just one moment, Judge. That's all I have. Thank you, Destiny.
All right. Mr. Abate, questions for Ms. Brown Moore?
So good afternoon, ma'am.
Uh,
So you said back in 2020, you were 29 years old.
Yes,
How old was your daughter? You said her name was Harmony.
yes, her name is Harmony,
Okay, how old was she?
about 2.5.
Okay, and back in August of 2020, specifically August 29th, 28th, 29th, where was your daughter Harmony living?
With her grandparents in Stockbridge.
So with Mr. Williams' parents, correct?
Yes,
And why wasn't she living with you?
because I had a situation with my sister and I decided we weren't going to stay there anymore. So I took her to her grandparents' house.
Okay, and was her father, now Officer Williams, living in Stockbridge as well?
No,
Where was he living?
in New York.
In New York?
Mhm.
All right, you have to say yes for Miss Rivers. So yes,
He was living in New York, yes.
and in August of 2020, you had been using, or you were using cocaine pretty frequently, correct?
Yes,
How often and how many times a day, or how many times a day were you using cocaine?
not that often at that time. It's about like not that much.
What does that mean?
Do you want me to say in sizes or?
Yeah,
However you want to measure it, and Mr. Abate may follow up with, what does that mean? Or,
Okay. So about 20 every couple days.
okay. When you say 20, is it 20, did it cost $20?
Yes,
Okay, and you said that would last a couple of days?
yes,
is this powder or crack?
powder.
Okay. And so whatever you could buy for $20 would last you 48 hours.
Yes,
And at this time, you said it sounded like you were working 3 jobs. You were working in cosmetology, correct?
no, sir.
Okay, what were you doing then?
I wasn't working at that time. I was doing photography freelance, but I did go to school for photography, for cosmetology.
Okay, when defense counsel, I guess you guys talked about the fact that you worked in the cosmetology arena as well as you were a nurse. When were you doing those things?
Cosmetology. It was earlier that year. I had just finished a semester at Atlanta Technical College.
Okay.
So, yes,
So you, when you were talking with your attorney on direct, you said you were working as a cosmetologist at some point. Where were you employed?
I was never working as a cosmetologist. I did CNA work.
Okay, and when did you do CNA work?
Last year, the year before that, to 2019.
Okay, and how long, I guess, had you done the CNA work or worked as a CNA?
A couple of months.
Couple of months.
Yeah.
Did you have to go to school for that?
Yes, I took classes
Okay, where'd you take classes?
in College Park.
Where?
In College Park off of Old National Highway.
But was it the College of Certified Nursing Assistants, or what was it called where you went?
It was like an office, but it was certification.
Okay.
So you got a certificate,
Yes,
okay? And how long did it take you to get that certificate?
about 2 months, 2.5 months.
Okay, and do you still have that certificate?
Yes,
Okay, and would that certificate have the name of the institution that you, I guess, got certified to be a CNA on it?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Now, so you said you got your certificate and you worked for a couple of months in 2019 as a nurse,
CNA,
CNA,
yes.
and where?
At a nursing home in College Park.
You know the name of the nursing home?
I cannot remember it.
Can't remember. Okay. And you worked there for the entire, you said couple of months, that 2, 3, 4 months?
I ended up going to school for cosmetology a little later that year.
You what?
I ended up going to school for cosmetology.
Okay, so I understand that, but my question is how long did you work as a nurse at the senior living facility?
About a month and a half or so,
Okay,
month or so.
and in that month and a half, did you work full-time, part-time? What were your hours?
I was working full-time,
Okay,
yes.
so on a typical day, tell me what your hours of work were.
It was in the daytime, 8 to about 3,
8 to 3. And you said that was in College Park?
yes.
You remember, I guess, who your manager was? Have you spoken to anyone from that facility since you worked there for a couple of months?
No,
No. Okay. And in August of 2020, you said you were just doing freelance photography. Yes.
yes.
And why, after getting your certificate, would you not work as a CNA?
I decided that field wasn't for me. I had a weak stomach.
Okay. And did you make that same decision about, I guess, cosmetology?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And
It's
as,
the weak stomach part of cosmetology.
No, the CNA.
I understand CNA, but then you also didn't do cosmetology work because of the weak stomach or a different reason?
It was a different reason.
What was that?
I did not like doing hair. It started to hurt my fingers.
Okay.
now, you said you were a freelance photographer. How long had you, I guess, been doing photography?
I was doing photography when I was in New York. So I came out here with my camera, and that's what I had wanted to do.
So when was that?
About 2017.
Okay. And how did you, I guess, advertise, or did you advertise for your services?
Instagram,
Okay. What was your Instagram handle?
Visions that amore,
Visions what?
that amore.
That amore?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have any other Instagram or social media handles that you used regularly?
Yes.
What were they?
Judge, I don't object to relevance here.
I can move on.
Let's.
Okay. So on August 28th of 2020, had you done any shoots, or had you taken pictures for anyone that day?
No.
Okay. And you said you went to Jack's in the, I guess, the Highlands area?
Yes.
Okay. And what time did you get there again?
I thought it was Little 5 Points. Those aren't necessarily the same. Was it Jack's at Little 5 Points or in Virginia Highlands?
I believe it's in Little 5 Points, but it's on Highland, is it Highland Boulevard?
I don't know where Jack's, I'm not pinning you down one way or the other. I just, Little Five Points and Virginia Highland to me are two different neighborhoods?
Not Virginia Islands, it's Highland
Okay,
and Boulevard. It's like off of Boulevard.
okay.
Okay, is it near kind of Ponce? Like the Ponce City Market, is it kind of near there?
It's a little further off. I think so.
Okay, and what time did you get there?
About 12 a.m.
12 a.m. Okay, and prior to arriving at Jack's, you had done cocaine, correct?
Mm. Okay. So I would usually get it while I'm out. So I had just been coming out, so I probably didn't.
You probably didn't do cocaine.
No.
Okay, so
Because you didn't have any yet?
Yeah.
So you would have acquired some at Jack's or near Jack's, and that's what you would have used at Jack's and at Pal's.
got it. And how long did you stay at Jack's?
Till about 2 a.m.
So roughly 2 hours.
Yes.
And it's your testimony in those 2 hours, you had one drink,
Yes.
okay? And you said there were a bunch of regulars there.
Yes.
Do you remember who was there that night?
No one specific. No.
Okay, how often would you go to Jack's?
I'd go to Jack's Fridays and Saturdays every week.
Okay, and today you can't remember in how many, you said Fridays and Saturdays every week. For how many years had you been doing that?
At that time, it's just been a couple months.
Okay. So at that time, you can't remember anyone you were with at Jack's, their name, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were driving, you said your Acura?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see. All right, I'll show you driving approach.
You may, both sides can approach the witnesses.
You recognize State Exhibit 22?
Yes.
And how do you recognize State Exhibit 22?
That is my old vehicle.
Okay, and is that the cream Acura that you were driving back on August 29th and 28th of 2020?
Yes, sir.
And does that photograph in States Exhibit 22 fairly and accurately depict the vehicle that you were driving that night?
It wasn't. It wasn't bent up then when I was driving it in
Okay,
2020.
so and I guess we're clear for the record. In States Exhibit 22 is that's your vehicle, correct?
It's the vehicle I had. Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would tender what's been marked as States Exhibit 22 into evidence.
Any objection for 22 to come in for this hearing?
No objection.
Ms. Gordon, it's admitted. So I'm clear. It sounds like your car was in an accident sometime after the event we've been talking about, and that's the wrinkled up or dented up or whatever you said.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how long did you have that car?
At how long did I have it, or how long?
How
Can you
long
please
is it?
repeat that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So on August 28th of 2020, how
Mhm.
long had you owned that vehicle?
I would have. I believe I just got it. I think I just got it.
So it's a recent purchase is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember where you bought it from?
Craigslist.
Craigslist?
Yes.
Okay. And did you buy it off of Craigslist from a dealership or from one person who was selling on Craigslist?
someone who was selling on Craigslist.
Okay. Now, you then did, after you left Jack's, did you drive straight to Pal's?
Yes,
And you would say Pal, it's about what time? A little after 2 a.m.?
yes,
Okay. And you said, I believe, that you got to Pal's around, what'd you say, 3:30?
yes.
Okay. So can you recall what you did from 2 when you left Jack's till the time you got to the area of Auburn Avenue around between 3 and 3:30?
Okay. Well, when I got to Auburn, I would have parked on Bell Street, but I didn't because it was crowded. So I went to Jesse Hill.
Mhm.
Then I walked to my car. I'm sorry, I walked to Powell's, which was around the corner.
So it's your testimony that you left Jack's at 2, and to get there, find a parking spot, took you about an hour and a half.
Um, Not an hour and a half, no.
Okay. So did I, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I recall you saying on direct that you got to Powell's around 3:30 a.m.
I got there about 3,
Okay.
yes.
So if you left Jack's at 2, it took you about an hour to get to Powell's and situated, correct?
I got there about 3.
Okay. So you'd agree that the area of where Jack's is off of Boulevard and Highland, and then Auburn Avenue, that's not very far, correct?
No, it's not.
Takes a matter of minutes to get there, correct?
About, yes.
And it's the middle of the night, so there's not a lot of traffic, right? Right?
Yes.
So from when you left to when you got to Pal's, isn't it true you went and bought more cocaine?
When I got to Powell's or before?
In between Jack's and Pal's.
No,
Okay.
So why did it take an hour to get from Jack, whether Jack's is in the Highlands or in Little Five Points or somewhere in between? Why would it take an hour at a time when the streets would have been pretty quiet to get from one to the other?
these are roughly the times about.
Okay. But your recollection, regardless of what time it was, all you did when you left Jack's, get in your car, drive 2 blocks away from Pal's, walk down Auburn, Jesse Hill, then Auburn, and you're in Pal's.
And you said you didn't park on Bell Street because there was a lot of cars, there was a lot of, I guess, people out, right?
Yes,
And this is August of 2020, right?
yes,
And we're in the height of COVID times, right?
yes,
And during that time, many businesses were shut down, correct?
yes,
And the restaurants, bars, and things of that nature were not very busy, right?
yes,
And many of them were shut down, correct?
yes, sir.
But your testimony is that Bell Street was pretty active and hectic that night, correct?
Yes, it's a
Okay,
very popular at the hour spot.
okay. And now it's your testimony that you got to Pal's 3 a.m., right?
About 3, yes.
Would it surprise you to know that Pal's closes at 2 a.m.?
Powell's, To my understanding, closes every morning at 6 a.m.
Okay, so your belief that Pals stays open all night, right?
Yes,
So you would be surprised if Pal's closing time was sometimes midnight and sometimes 2 a.m. That would surprise you.
yes.
Okay. Now, when you got to Pal's at 3 a.m., was it pretty packed? Was there a lot of people there?
Yes.
Okay. How big is Pal's?
It's about, when you walk in, it's about from here to behind that desk is like the bar there.
And when you walked in, you said you were a regular, right?
Yes.
And so as a regular, you knew a lot of people, right?
Yes, sir.
And while you were there, you said you had another 2 drinks, correct? Right?
About a drink or two. Yeah.
Okay. So your testimony was that you had 3 drinks all night, right?
About a drink or so. Yes.
Okay. So now your testimony is you had about 2 to 3 drinks, right? So you had a drink at Jack's, correct?
Mhm.
And if you had 2 drinks at Pal's, that would be 3 drinks total for the night, right?
That would equal 3. Yes, sir.
Okay. So also, in addition to those 2 drinks, you said you did cocaine at Pal's, correct?
Yes.
How much cocaine did you do that night while you were at Pal's, or that early morning, excuse me?
I would have still been doing that same 20 bag.
The same 20 bag
Yes.
that you had bought at Jack's, right?
That I got. Yes.
Okay. Where did you get it at Jack's? I promise it's not a trick question.
At Jack's or Pal's.
Okay. And when you left Pal's between 5:20 and 5:30, I think you said, how much of that 20 bag was left?
I'm not sure.
Was any of it left? Probably.
And you would agree, Ms. Brown-Moore, that cocaine is a drug that alters your state of mind, right?
At that point, it just made me talk a lot.
Okay. And would you agree that cocaine can affect how you perceive things and how you remember things, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said you had your knife in the side pocket of the driver's side door, right?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded as if you had just gotten that knife or purchased the knife, correct?
I didn't just purchase it.
Or how long did you have it?
Maybe from the month before.
You'd had it for about 30 days.
Maybe I had used it when I went fishing.
Okay. And when did you go fishing?
Probably about either that month or the month before.
Okay. And who'd you go fishing with?
A friend of mine.
What's your friend's name?
Big Baby.
Okay. Does Big Baby have a real name?
That's the name I know him by.
Is Big Baby a man, a woman?
That's a man.
A man?
Yes.
Okay. How long had you known Big Baby?
A couple of months. We used to work together.
Where at?
At this club doing security,
Say that one more time?
at a club doing security.
Okay, but you had known him only a couple of months, right?
Yes.
So when we've been talking and when you spoke with your attorney, you said that you had dabbled in CNA work, you had dabbled in cosmetology work, and that you had worked as a freelance photographer. Now you're telling us that you were a security guard?
Yes.
Okay, with Big Baby.
Yes.
Which club?
Orem.
Where?
Orem.
Okay, where's that?
Midtown.
Aura, A-U-R-A?
Orem.
How would you spell it?
A-U-R-U-M.
Okay.
Element.
Okay, and so you had worked where in Midtown? Midtown's a very large area.
It's like off of 10th Ave.
And back in August of 2020, were you working at Aram?
I believe I just stopped.
You just stopped working there.
Yes.
Why?
I decided I was going to do photography. I was going to just go for it.
Okay. And how often did you work with Big Baby?
We'd work together every night.
Okay. And you had been there a couple of months every night. So was the club ever closed?
Judge, I'm gonna object to relevance again. We're now getting into someone that she went fishing with a month prior to the incident that we're here for today.
Judge, I think this goes directly to her credibility.
I'll let you keep going. I trust you're not going to dive too deep. I think I understand you're now establishing how frequently Ms. Brown-Moore spent time with someone we're now hearing about for the first time, who she only knows as Big Baby.
That's correct, Judge. So in those, you said you worked with him every night. How many nights would you say that you worked with him before you stopped working at Aram at the time of this incident?
I probably worked there for like a month and change.
Okay. And well, if you would, that would mean that you had worked at Aram. This happened in August. You roughly started working there in maybe July.
I'm gonna say June.
Okay. And you said you had probably gone fishing in June or July then, right?
Yes.
So when you went fishing, you had just met Big Baby?
Not just met.
Okay. Had you known him prior to working at Aram?
No.
Okay. And in all the times that you worked there with him, you never learned his birth name or the name his mom and dad gave him?
Not while working there, no.
How about afterwards?
Yes.
What is Big Baby's real name? I think I asked you that.
I cannot recall.
Okay. Now, you said you walked to your car, you had to take a couple rights to get to where you had parked, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said you parked off of Jesse Hill Drive?
On Jesse Hill Drive.
Okay. And had you parked there before?
Yes.
Okay. And let's see.
Yes, ma'am.
Get some water.
Do you have any extra water either side for Ms. Brown-Moore? I had Kleenex. Unfortunately, I don't have water.
I can get one.
Okay.
Here.
Look at that deal.
Thank you.
Water's on its way. Are you able to, if you know water's coming, can we keep going or do you need to take a break? Okay.
So you get to your car and as you're walking from Powell's, which is what street is Powell's off of?
House is on Auburn and Bell.
Okay, so as you walk from Auburn to Bell over to Jesse Hill Drive, are you still seeing a lot of people?
I remember seeing people on Jesse Hill.
Okay, and when you say you remember seeing people, did you see one person or did you see, enough to make you notice there was a crowd?
It was about 3 people, maybe.
Okay, and I want to show you State's Exhibits 1 and 2.
Did you admit states 22?
I thought I did, yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I think this.
Yes, she said no objection. So 22 is admitted. So we've got maybe 1 and 2 and 22.
Yes, Judge.
Okay.
I'll show you 1 and 2. So take a look at those. Let me know if you recognize State's Exhibits 1 and 2. I'm sorry.
I recognize this wall,
You recognize what?
the wall,
Okay, so are you looking at State's Exhibits 1 or 2?
2.
Okay, and you said you recognize the wall in State's Exhibit 2. Tell me, how do you recognize the wall, or where is the wall that you recognize in State's Exhibit 2?
That's on Jesse Hill.
Okay, and does State's Exhibit 2 fairly and accurately depict the area that you've described that you had parked your vehicle?
It was about there.
Okay, at this time, around the state would tender, we'll just tender what's been marked State's Exhibit 2 and evidence.
All right. Any objection to states 2?
No objection.
It's admitted.
Now, I'm gonna try, and it should pop up on the screen in front of you in a second. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. So you said you walked to your vehicle and as you're walking, you said you see a car, I guess as you're crossing the street?
As I'm walking towards my car.
Okay, and how close are you to, I guess, your car when you notice, I guess, another vehicle? What makes you notice that vehicle?
He was trying to get my attention.
How is he trying to get your attention?
Beeping.
Okay, he's beeping his horn. Is he doing anything else?
He's saying stuff.
What's he saying?
I can't recall.
Okay. But you continue to walk to your car. You don't stop, right?
Yes.
And you said you get in your car, you shut the door, right? You, I guess, have cigarettes either on your person or in your car.
Yes.
And you said you rolled out your window
Yes.
and you light the cigarette, right?
I like the cigarette and I rolled down my window.
Okay. And when you roll down your window, is he still beeping and honking his horn and things like that?
He then pulled his car to my side of the street.
Okay, and is his window down?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and do you remember as he pulls up, because you said he pulls up in your car, you said the driver's side door is closest to, I guess, the street.
Mhm.
And he pulls up right next to you and his driver's side door is right next to you?
Yes, he was facing the wrong direction.
Okay, and is he pulled up, where both of your driver's side windows are even?
No,
No. How is he pulled up?
his driver's side window was more even with the back of my car.
Okay, and does he immediately get out?
He did.
Okay, and was this the first time you had ever seen this man?
Yes.
And when you, how quickly does he get out of the car?
Almost immediately.
God, the technology in here just never good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see.
So the cars weren't so close together that he couldn't open his door, because it sounds like he gets out. And obviously you were able to open your door because you've told us at some point you open your door and you're standing next to your car. So they're parallel to each other, but there's enough space for you to open your door.
Yes.
Okay, so in the screen or on the screen in front of you, I think it should be up there. There is a state exhibit 2. Can you, for the court, point out where your car was parked?
So you're able to do that on that screen. If you'll tap the screen once, just touch it with your finger. If you're able to reach the screen, just go ahead and touch anywhere you want on the screen. Well, he'll do it. Now attach that circle down in the corner. It has a pencil in it, lower left-hand corner. Great. Now your finger is like a pen. And so where you draw on it, it will make a line or an X or whatever you draw. So the question is, does this picture allow you to indicate where your car was parked on Jesse Hill Drive?
Judge, can I just inquire, is this state's exhibit 1 or 2?
It's 2.
I was told it was 2.
This is 1. 1 is a.
1 is not in evidence.
That's what I thought. Thank you, just checking.
Sure.
So it's either directly over here or further up or further down, but everything on the street looks alike on this side. But you can almost say somewhere about here.
Okay, so it was.
Can you repeat the last thing you said?
It was either there or further up or further down the block, but everything on that block looks the same on that side.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, so it looks like from where your circle is on state exhibit 2, it's behind, because is the front of your car facing the I guess blue small SUV, or is the back of your car facing the blue small SUV?
The front of my car.
Okay, and the victim's vehicle, you said it was a dark colored, was it a sedan, was it SUV, do you remember?
It was a sedan.
Okay, and he, can you draw a circle kind of where and how he pulled up next to you?
He started on this side of the street and he pulled up here facing this direction and he pulled right there.
Okay. So he's basically parked in the middle of the street on the wrong side of the road, basically.
Yes.
Okay, and while he's parked, are there people around walking by?
I don't remember seeing anybody walking. I remember when I was walking to the car, I saw people along the side, a couple cars before mine.
And were there cars still, was the traffic still going back in front? Back and forth, excuse me?
I remember seeing a tan Jeep looking car on the side that he had came from.
Okay. And,
And Pal's is behind us, the way we're facing in this picture. If I wanted to go to Pal's, I'd need to turn around and head back down towards Bell or Auburn, whatever the cross street is.
Yes, you make a left going towards the side that I was parked on.
Okay.
now, when he gets out of the car, can you tell the court, you said he was saying flattering things. Does he immediately get out and start flattering you? What's he saying?
I know he got out and he introduced himself.
Okay. And you don't remember his name, right?
I don't remember the name that he told me. I think it was the nickname.
Okay. And I think you said you guys spoke together for 20 to 30 minutes, right?
Yes,
And you'd agree he was a complete stranger, right?
yes.
And in those 20 to 30 minutes, do you recall anything that you talked about other than his name?
I know I told him that I'm a photographer. Excuse me, that I'm from New York. He told me that he wasn't from here.
Anything else?
He just kept telling me that I look like a model.
Okay.
And I remember I told him I liked his outfit.
Okay.
Do you remember what his outfit was?
He had on all white.
All white?
Yes,
And in those 20 to 30 minutes, he was never aggressive with you, correct?
yes, yeah, that's correct.
And he never was inappropriate, I guess, with you, correct?
Correct.
And he never touched you, sounds like at all in those 20 to 30 minutes.
Correct.
And you said at the end of, I guess, your conversation, he invited you to his hotel, right?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember, did he tell you where his hotel was?
He said at the Ritz-Carlton.
Okay. And you said you had to call a friend, right?
Yes.
And do you remember who were you calling? What friend?
Just a girl that I knew that would probably hang out with me.
Okay. And who was that? Who was the girl?
Her name is Red.
Her name is what?
Red.
Okay. And how long had you known Red?
I had met her on the after hour scene.
Okay. So you anticipated my next question was how you met her, but I asked how long had you known Red?
Just a couple of months.
Okay. And I guess she was a regular at Pal's, right?
Yes, sir.
Regular at Jack's, right?
Yes, sir.
But she wasn't there at Jack's that night, correct?
I'm not sure if she was at Jack's.
And she wasn't there at Pal's, correct?
She was at Pal's.
She was at Pal's.
Yes.
Okay. And when you called her, where was she?
She didn't answer the phone.
Okay. And you said you called her, I guess, through Instagram?
Yes.
Okay. And after she didn't answer, I believe it was your testimony that you told him you weren't going to go back to his hotel, right?
Yes, sir.
Why were you going to bring Red to the hotel room of the man you had just met?
Because I didn't want to go by myself.
Why?
Because he was a stranger.
Okay. A stranger who you had spent 20 to 30 minutes talking to on a dark street in the middle of the night, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you would agree that a hotel is a safer place to have a conversation with someone, like a hotel lobby. It's a much safer place than the side of a road, correct?
I think it would have been.
Okay. And after you told him you were not going back to the hotel with him, he didn't say anything, you said, correct?
Yes,
And immediately after you said you weren't going, it's your testimony that he started choking you, right?
yes,
And when he choked you, it sounds like you said that he was using both of his hands, correct?
it was one hand. I remember one hand.
Okay, where was his other hand?
I don't know.
Okay, and where was he standing in relation to your and his vehicle when he started choking you?
I wasn't in his vehicle.
You what?
I wasn't in his vehicle. I was standing outside.
My question wasn't clear, so I'll ask about it when I
Okay.
apologize. So when he starts choking you, you both are outside of the vehicles, correct?
Yes,
So are you still, it sounds like you were, your door was open, right?
hmm,
Windows down, right?
yes, sir.
And you're standing in between, I guess, the open door, leaning on, I guess, the side of your vehicle?
Yes,
Okay. And while you're leaning, I guess, into where's your back?
against my car.
Which part?
Like in the space of the driver door.
In the space between the door and, I guess, the seat?
My back, it's in the space of the driver door,
Mhm.
and where the door would usually be, my back was there instead.
So let's say this is the door and it's open. Are you leaning in? I guess I'm confused where you're leaning, because how do you lean into an open door?
So if this is my car door and the chair is the car, I would have been leaning about on the car, and the door would have been open and my arm was on top of my car door. And we were talking like that.
So it sounds like you kind of lean forward with your right or your left arm that's on, I guess, your driver's side door.
All right,
Your right arm, okay. And where is he?
in front of me.
Well, where? Is he in front of you? Where there's, well, I'll let you answer. Where in front of you?
So I need a little help on this. Can I share my screen?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, you need to unshare yours.
sorry.
It's all right. So I think you can mark on this. That's a car diagram. And that little, is it on your screen? And then that looks like the door is open. See that little line? Can you put an X where you were? And if that door is not right, you're not bound by this diagram, but it's a sedan. It's got a door that I drew. Okay. And we'll put a circle where the guy in the white clothes is when you're conversating just before he grabs your neck. Because I'm trying to figure out where the door is in connection with you two. Okay. And so what I'm understanding you say is with at least one hand, he grabs your neck and you eventually fall into your car because the door is open. And as Mr. Abate was asking, there's not car behind you. I mean, you could bonk your head because there's the roof of the car, but there's not a side of the car because the door is open. Is that am I understanding now more clearly what the scene was? You don't, you tell me. You can erase if things are, you want to change where they are. There's a circle an arrow over to the, looks like that should make, there you go. And make sure you speak into the, so draw what you want to draw, but speak into the microphone. Ms. Rivers will hear that. So you're the X
Yes,
and the guy in white is the O.
yes.
Okay.
But I was far enough from my car to not hit my head when I got pushed in the car.
Okay.
Okay,
I didn't mean to suggest anything about hitting your head. I just was trying to understand how you got from when you were standing talking to inside the car. I'm going to let Mr. Abate ask a few more questions. We're going to need to take a break in about 5 minutes. So if you reach a natural break point in what's coming up, let's do that. Otherwise, I'll have to interrupt.
okay. So he immediately puts one of his hands around your neck, right?
Yes,
And when he does that, you somehow immediately fall directly into your car.
he pushed me into the car by my neck.
He pushed you into the car.
Yes.
And you said you are 5'6", right?
Yes.
And when he pushed you in, like the judge asked, you didn't hit your head, right?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
And you fell directly onto the driver's seat is what it sounds like, right?
Yes.
But when you said no, and he put his hands around your neck, your testimony was that you were leaning on, your back was leaning, I guess, on the vehicle, right?
I was standing between my car door and my car.
So I understand that, but do you remember testifying that when you were talking to him and told him no, that you had one hand rested on, I guess, your driver's side door was your right hand, and then your back area was leaning on to the vehicle, right?
I was standing on my vehicle. Yes.
Okay.
And vehicle.
And when he put his hands on you, he was able to push you directly into the car without hitting your head, back, anything like that, right?
Yes.
And you fell directly into the driver's seat with your head, I guess, was it touching the center console?
It was like, yeah, the middle.
And as he did that, your testimony is he continued to choke you, right?
Yes.
And he continued to choke you with just the one hand, right?
Yes.
And you're flat on your back, right?
Yes.
And both of your hands are free to fight or hit, correct?
My left hand was not free. My other hand must have been under the steering wheel.
And you said your left hand was not free.
No,
What was it? What was holding it down? What had it trapped?
maybe I was on top of it or something, but the chair was in the way.
Okay. And you were able to get your hand free, right?
Yes.
And you said you immediately punch him in the face.
Yes.
Okay. And when you punch him, does he say anything?
No.
And you said his other hand, do you remember if it's his left or his right?
Is right.
And you said his right hand was, I guess, near your vaginal area.
Yes.
Do you remember, were you wearing pants, shorts, dress?
I had on shorts.
Okay. And you said his right hand was able to touch your vagina.
Yes.
And this is the same person you had a pleasant 20 to 30-minute conversation without any issues, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And while you guys are standing there, does he do any drugs?
No.
When you were speaking to him, did he appear to be in a normal, I guess, state of mind?
He was in. I would believe he was intoxicated.
Okay.
What made you think he was intoxicated?
He slurred when he spoke and him just pulling on that side of the street like that, that's not something a sober-minded person would do.
Okay. But nothing that I guess caused you any concern or pause, correct?
Before that,
Correct.
no, sir.
Now, you said you punch him and he, it sounds like he releases your neck.
He moved,
He what?
he moved.
Okay. And-
What does that mean?
He backed up, he got out of my car.
He got out of the car.
and-
Was he effectively lying on top of you, or he had you pinned but was leaning into the car?
He was lying on top of me.
And when he was lying on top of you, he wasn't armed, right?
I don't believe so, I don't know, but
Okay.
I don't think so.
You never saw him with a gun, right?
No,
Never saw him with a weapon, right?
no, sir.
And you said you hit him in the face and that makes him just get up, right?
Yes,
And he backs up. How far does he back up?
out of my car.
Okay. And into the middle of the street?
He just backed up.
Well, let me ask you this question. How close is his car parked to yours?
It was spaced in between. It was like double parked, but it wasn't parked right. Like there was space in between the cars.
Enough space that he is able to back up, and you said you immediately shut your door.
Yes.
And in State's Exhibit 2, other than the blue small SUV, do you see any other cars parked on
You can put two back up.
Jesse Hill?
Are you talking about right now?
Yes,
Are there any other cars parked there?
yes.
No.
Okay. And it's your testimony that there were cars blocking you from both ends, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did you know that after you shot the victim in this case, Mr. Hundal, that the police showed up pretty quickly?
No.
Okay, you didn't know that. Okay. And are you aware that once police arrived, they block off or mark off the crime scene?
Yes.
And when they do that, they don't let anyone in and they don't let anyone out.
Okay.
So you know that?
I do now, yes.
So is it your testimony that not only yourself, but the car that was blocking you from the back was also able to leave before the police got there?
I cannot confirm that.
Okay.
Why don't we pause there? This won't be a long break, but I need to take care of one thing. So let's try to start up at about 3:45. And you'll be able to continue with your cross-examination of Ms. Brown-Moore. And we'll see where else we can get. And Ms. Wood, before I go, the information I received was that New York sister was actually going to plug in and I'd put her in a breakout room, but I haven't seen her plug in.
She logged in, Judge, and then she got nervous. She didn't want to be in for too long. And so she's just on standby. I
Okay,
can text
great.
her whenever.
Okay, thanks.
Judge, with the time constraint, should I have the witnesses who I have here remain?
I would not, because I assume you're going to, do you know, Ms. Gordon, that you will still be calling Ms. Brown-Moore's two sisters?
I expect to.
Okay, how much more do you have of cross-examination? 30 minutes, 1 minute, hour?
20 minutes probably.
Okay, so that would get us past 4. The 2 witnesses you're gonna call would be about how long do you expect? Estimates?
Maybe 20 minutes on direct-ish.
Each? Okay, that's gonna fill the day. So, I mean, if,
I may have some brief redirect.
and you're entitled to that. So I would let your witnesses go. And if you do want to call them after Ms. Gordon rests, we will reschedule this as soon as we can to take up the rest of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I'm reading.
Are you? Are you cool if I just pop back there? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she told me to wait for just a second. I didn't know if there were like other people back there. Oh, okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I gotta get this.
Thank you.
But I gotta take advantage of this.
Madrid. Yeah, I'm at work in the back there, so. Go on. Just weird.
Thank you.
Except from this side, so I gotta open the door, swing it on both of us. All right, y'all ready?
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. I see this for just a second.
No, when you walk out, it's a way to get to this way.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I was like, wait, who's that from? That's video to me. Yes. Not that I know. I was curious. I didn't think so, but I was curious. Do you guys, when you have trials in here, do you ask it what do if they happen to watch the YouTube channel? I've included that on my question. No, so far no one has, but I started including that.
Court come to order, remain seated.
So how many more abates are there out there? There's John too.
There's 4 of us.
Yeesh. What does John do?
He he's retired from playing in the NFL.
Oh,
He does medical sales now.
be biologically related to you?
He is. He's just looks like 2 of me.
Okay. All right. We are ready for Ms. Brown Moore. Was he a place kicker?
He was a fullback and a safety.
Huh?
A linebacker and safety. I'm sorry. He played for Wake Forest in college when they went to the Orange Bowl, and then he played for the Texans. When I say played, he was, the practice team.
He's on the team. I mean, that means he is not a small person if he's playing linebacker.
He's a big. That's exactly right.
Yeah, right.
You can just head back to the stand.
Well, I hope it's okay. You have his computer. He sounds bigger. So if you took it, that might not end well for you. All right, Ms. Rivers, are you ready for us to continue?
Yes, I'm ready.
Great. We are back on the record in State versus Brown Moore. Ms. Brown Moore has been restocked with water, and we are resuming the cross-examination wherever you want to pick back up, Mr. Body.
Thank you, Judge. So I believe we left off. You punched him, and the man you had been speaking with for the last half hour, he's backs up like this, right? With his hands up.
He was on top of me in the car, and once I got my hand free, I punched him, and then he then moved out of my car. He backed out of my car.
And you shut your door.
I jumped up and I shut my door.
Okay. And when you shut your door, what does he do?
He then jumped into my window.
Okay. And you said he jumped in to your window because he saw you reaching for the knife, right?
I had it in my hand. I was holding it.
Okay. And,
So which came first? You had the gun, the knife, you had the knife in your hand and this guy reaches in, or he had already reached back in through the now closed door but open window?
When I jumped up and I closed my door, my knife was in the side of the pocket side.
Right.
So it kind of happened almost at the same time. Once I closed the door and then he jumped into my car.
Okay. Do you have a sense, and if you don't know, don't speculate, do you have a sense of whether the guy could see that you had a knife in your hand before he starts coming in through the window?
I think he knew the knife was there
Okay.
when I was speaking to him with the door open.
Okay.
Sorry, Judge, I didn't hear that last. I think he knew.
The knife was there when I was speaking to him with the door open.
So you think he would have seen it in the side pocket of the door during the 20, 30 minutes you all were talking and the door was open and in his line of sight?
Yes.
okay, and, I guess we'll talk about that for a second. Is, the knife the only thing in your, I guess, the side pocket of your driver's side door?
It would have probably been that and some change or something.
Okay, so, and those, I guess, the side pocket of a door is, it's not a shallow, I guess, storage area, right?
Yes,
Yes, it is shallow, or no, it's not?
but it's right there.
Okay, and you'd agree a knife is flat, right? Yes,
Yes,
and so when you put it in to that area in your car on the storage area on the side of your driver's side door, you can't see it.
it was on the top, like where the door handle is.
Hmm.
Some cars have the little holder instead of just when you open the door.
Hmm.
What's it called? Just instead of just like the handle, it'll have one of those, a pocket right there. It had that. So I would put like my lighters there and this knife,
Okay,
so I can just grab it.
okay. And you would agree that, I guess, the area that you're talking about is typically like a small, like box area, like a small rectangular area the size of probably the opening of that Kleenex box, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's your testimony, you left your knife there,
Yes,
and it wasn't there when you went to Pal's.
yes.
Okay, so you would agree to keep it there, you'd have to stand it up, right?
No, I laid it flat.
Was it a knife like a Swiss Army knife where the blade comes out, or was it like a dagger where there's a handle and the blade is always out in the open?
It was a knife you would have to pull up. I had got it from Walmart.
Sure. So it's a standard folding knife. The
Yes.
blade can go into some holder so you don't cut yourself while you're carrying it, but then you can unfold it and then the blade is out.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Did it have a handle?
Yes.
Yes? What did the handle look like? Do you remember?
It was white, but it looked like some kind of wood carving and it had some little cuts in it.
Okay, and when you left it in your vehicle, I guess in the area, like kind of towards the top of your driver's side door, close to your window, right?
Yes,
And was it folded down or was it open?
it was closed.
It was closed.
Yes.
And I want to show you State's Exhibit 18. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
And what is or how do you recognize State's Exhibit 18? Okay, and the State's Exhibit 18 fairly and accurately depict the knife that you had stored on in your car on August 28th and the 29th of 2020.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time the state would tender what's been marked as State's Exhibit 18 into evidence.
No objection.
It's admitted?
So you, the judge had asked you a few questions about the knife, and you said that you punched him, he backed up, you shut the door, and simultaneously as you're shutting the door, you're grabbing the knife, right?
Yes,
And you also said as that's happening all at the same time, the door shutting, you grabbing the knife, the man you had just met that night was immediately coming through your window, right?
yes,
And when he comes through your window, does he immediately wrap his hands around your neck?
through my window,
Yes. So you said you shut the door, right?
yes,
And you grab your knife, right?
yes.
And after you grab your knife, you said that he then attacks you again, right?
He grabbed my arm.
How does he grab your arm?
He grabbed this side, this arm, and then he was holding it with one arm. And he was trying to get the knife out of the other hand, with the other hand.
And your door is still closed though, right?
Yes,
So he's in the window.
yes,
Okay. So I thought you seemed confused when I asked you that question. So he has now come through the driver's side window, right?
yes,
And are you seated straight up?
yes,
And he's got, you said he initially goes after, is it your left hand? Is that where the knife is?
yes,
Okay. And that is that at the same time or very soon, like seconds after you shut the door?
yes.
And okay, and in States Exhibit 18, that's the knife that you've been talking about, right?
Yes,
And it's closed. Yes?
It's not closed. I'm going to make a factual finding, right?
Well, I sorry, Judge.
Now it's not.
It's closed when you grab it, is what I meant to ask, right?
yes,
And in States Exhibit 18, you'd agree the knife is open, right?
it is.
And you said when you shut the door and get your knife, he's immediately grabbing for your left hand, correct?
Yes,
And what's your right hand doing?
I don't know, it's free.
It's free, okay.
Yes.
And do you use your right hand, I guess, to open your knife?
No,
Okay. When does a knife get opened?
I don't recall opening the knife.
Okay, you don't recall opening it.
No,
Okay. Now, I want to show you States Exhibit. Where did it go? 21. Take a second look at it. You recognize States Exhibit 21.
yes,
And what is, or how do you recognize States Exhibit 21?
that is my 9.
Okay, and does State Exhibit 21 fairly and accurately depict the gun that you had on August 29th,
Yes, sir.
2020? Yes.
Yes,
This time around, the state would tender what's been marked as State Exhibit 21 into evidence.
No objection.
21's admitted.
How long had you had that gun?
for a couple of months.
Couple of months.
Yes,
Okay, and where'd you buy it?
a gun store in someplace called- it's not College Park, it's it was the same place I had went to get my security license.
Okay, so I wasn't with you, so where was that?
This is road call.
Let me ask a question, maybe it'll help. Was the gun store near the area of Auburn Avenue where you were that night?
No, sir.
Was the gun store area near where your sister Valerie lived in East Point?
No.
Okay, had you been to the gun store before?
Yes, is where I had went to get my security license, and I got my armed security license.
And I guess, when was that?
That would have been. Let's see. Earlier that year. Probably February-ish.
Okay. So instead of asking more questions about that, I guess I'll go back to my original one. So where is it? And is it in Atlanta? Is it in Clayton County? Like where is the gun store?
Trying to think of this road. It's a place off of 85.
85 is kind of long though. Do you know what, is it in College Park? Is it in Buford?
It's after College Park. But it's like after College Park. I can't remember the name of this road.
Okay. So when you got the gun in States Exhibit 21, did you pay with cash, credit card?
My card.
Okay. And was it a brand new gun? Was it in the box?
It was brand new, yes.
Okay. And when you purchased that gun, did you keep the paperwork?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you kept it in your sunroof?
Yes.
Okay. So explain that to me.
My sunroof. What would you like me to explain?
How you kept your gun in the sunroof?
I'll just keep it up there. It was a door where you could slide back and forth, and then there was a glass and there was a button you can press to open the sunroof after you slide the door open.
Mhm.
So I would just keep it up there when I was not in my car.
Okay. So with a sunroof, you have, it's I guess a window in your roof. Okay. Did you keep it to the back of the sunroof, the front of the sunroof? How did you keep it when you slid the screen back, did it immediately fall down? How'd that work?
When I slid it back, I was grabbing for it and it did fall down into the cup holder.
Okay.
Normally, if you were, that's what you described, this situation with the guy in the white clothes. You were trying to get it and it fell. But if you weren't in a situation like you were describing, you just got in your car and you wanted to get the gun, how would you get it out without risking a loaded gun bouncing around inside your car?
I'd slide it back with my right hand, then I'd grab it with my left.
Okay.
Yeah, then put it in my glove compartment once I start driving.
Okay. You put it in your glove compartment once you start driving?
Yes.
Okay. Now, wouldn't it make more sense to keep it in your glove compartment where it's, I guess, secure at all times when you have it in your vehicle?
So she already answered that? Unless you're trying to impeach her on it, why she keeps it up there when she's not in the car, in case someone breaks into her car and looks in the glove compartment.
Oh, I didn't. When did she say that?
On direct exam.
Okay.
You're welcome to explore it. I just want to make sure we get through her testimony today.
So you kept it in there so if someone was to break into your car, they would, I guess, go into your glove compartment, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd agree your car is a sedan, right?
Yes.
And where you put your gun, you can immediately see through the sunroof, correct? So it's a window, right? The sunroof?
The sunroof is a window.
Okay, so if I'm standing up and looking, over your car, I'd be able to immediately see that there's a gun up there, correct?
No, it was a dark tent.
It was a dark tent?
Yes.
Okay. And had you owned a gun before?
No,
Okay. So you said you had the knife in your left hand, and he's holding your left hand, correct?
yes.
And where's his right hand? Or his other hand?
One hand was, so his right hand was holding my arm,
Mhm.
and then his other hand was trying to open my other arm, my hand, pry my hand open.
So both hands were, I guess, focused on your left hand, correct?
Yes,
And how are you seated in the front seat? Are you sitting up?
I was.
And is your seat pretty upright?
Yes,
Okay. And so when he's leaning in, going after your left hand, is he hurting you?
he's holding my arm.
Okay. And it's your testimony that you're then able to reach up, right?
Yes.
And with one hand, move the screen. How did you move the screen?
I moved the door I just pulled it back. I've done it 1,000 times, pulling the door back from the sunroof. I pulled it back, but I wasn't used to doing it with one hand.
Mhm.
That's why when it fell,
Okay, and was the screen, most cars that I've seen, the screen you have to hit a button to move the screen, and the screen moves, and then you have to hit another button or the same button again to open the sunroof, right?
yes, but this was a 2002
Mhm.
Acura, so it was no button. It was just a little sliding door.
Okay, so you slid open the screen, and you said the gun fell out and right into the cup holder, right?
Yes.
And after it falls out of the cup holder, that makes does it make a loud noise?
It did make a noise.
Okay, and so when it falls out, he's still got both of his hands focused on your left hand with the knife, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're able to continue to wrestle with him with the knife, right? You're still doing that.
I'm just holding this knife in my hand as tight as I can.
Okay, and while you're doing that, you immediately get your gun in your right hand, right? Yes.
Yes.
And does that gun have a safety?
It does have a safety.
Okay, and the safety was on that night, correct?
I don't recall if it was or not.
Okay, do you remember telling Officer Williams, but you know him as Jeffrey Williams, that the safety was on?
I don't remember telling him that.
And do you remember telling him that you then turned the safety, or because the safety was on, you cocked the gun to put a bullet in the head?
Absolutely not.
You don't remember saying that?
I never said that.
Okay, and but I guess your testimony is when you spoke to Officer Williams in May of 2022, you knew that he was recording you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're able to get your gun situated to where you get it out of the cup holder while you're still fighting with the knife with your left hand, and get your gun to where you can have your finger on the trigger and pointed at the man, right?
I picked it up from the cup holder. Yeah.
Okay. And when you picked it up from the cup holder, or when it fell from the cup holder, did he say anything?
When he didn't see me going for the gun, he was so focused on trying to get this knife out of my hand.
Okay. And he's through the window on top of you, right?
He was just through the window. At this moment, he was not on top of me.
Okay. And how close is his face from your face?
His face was still, he was outside the car. His head was standing outside the car. He was looking back and forth outside the car.
Okay, so the only thing that was, I guess, inside your vehicle then was his hands, right?
His arms.
Okay. And when you got the gun in your hand, and did you immediately fire?
When I picked it up, I started firing.
Okay. And your doors closed, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you shoot him through the window, right?
Yes.
And was your gun fully loaded?
I don't know if it was fully loaded, but it was loaded.
Okay. Well, who loaded it?
I did.
Okay. So had you ever had to use it before?
I had just came from the gun range a couple weeks before that, maybe a week or so.
So it sounds like you don't know how many bullets were inside of your gun is what you're trying to tell me.
Correct.
Okay. And which gun range did you go to?
That one, it was one, maybe on Ponce. I had found something on Groupon, and I went there.
Okay. But at that time you were not working in Atlanta, you were living in Clayton County, right?
Yes.
Okay. So do you remember how many times you pulled the trigger?
No.
Okay. And when you pulled the trigger, what does he do after that?
He got into his car.
He got into his car.
Yes.
And when you pulled the trigger, you still had the knife in your hand, correct?
I let go of the knife. Once I picked up the gun from the cup holder, I screamed, "No." And I started shooting, but before I started shooting, I let go of the knife as soon as I picked up the gun.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I understand. So you'd agree that the knife, you said the knife was closed. So you have the knife is in the middle of your fist, correct? Yes.
Yes.
And he's trying to open your fist, right?
Yes.
And he's unable to do that, right? Right?
Yes.
And you have the knife inside of your fist, balled up, when you get your gun and fire at him, correct? Right?
Yes.
And so you said as you are going to fire, you release the knife, right?
Once I picked up the gun,
Okay.
I opened my hand. Yes.
And as you release the knife, you immediately start shooting, right?
Yes.
You would agree that if the door is shut, the knife would be found in your car, correct?
I didn't know what happened to it once I let go.
Okay. Did you see the man take the knife?
I didn't know.
Okay. And how close were you to the man when you pulled the trigger? Like, where was his body?
He was outside of my car door.
And you were inside the car door.
Yes.
Okay. And after you finish shooting the gun, you said he immediately gets into his car, right? Yes.
Yes. He got into his car.
Okay, which sounds like feet away from your front door, correct?
Yes.
And after you shoot him, does he still not say anything to you?
He just got into his car. And once he pulled off, I pulled off.
Okay. And your car was running at this point, right?
Yes.
It was?
Yes.
And your car was running and turned on when you were able to shut the door and grab your knife, right?
Yes.
You had started your car.
Yes.
And you said on direct that you were scared, right?
Yes.
You were afraid for your life, right?
Yes.
And what was stopping you from, I guess, hitting the gas and going, front or back to push one of the vehicles, I guess, out of your way?
I didn't want to risk hurting myself or anyone around me.
But you fired a gun in a public street where there were, as you said, people that you had seen driving and walking around,
Yes.
and you'd agree, in the cars that you say that were, I guess, blocking you in from the back and the front, while you were there speaking to the man for 20 to 30 minutes, and during the struggle you described, you never saw anybody enter or exit any of those vehicles, correct?
No.
No.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, you said you immediately drove off and you looked into your rearview mirror, you saw him crash his car.
Yes.
At that point, did you realize that you had shot him?
Yes.
Okay. And when you, I guess you said you went to your sister Valerie's house first?
I drove, I couldn't see anything. I could see, but I didn't know where I was going. So I stopped and I called my sister, Jessica.
Okay. And whether you stopped there or later when you stopped at your sister's house, I guess, did you inspect your car or anything like that afterwards?
No.
How long did you keep the car after the shooting?
I kept it, even after it got hit like that, I kept the car because it was all I had at that point.
Right. And the times, it sounds like you had it for at least a year after the shooting.
Yes.
And there were, you never noticed any bullet holes in your car, correct?
No, there's no bullet holes in my car.
And when you were able to get to a stopping point, you never found any shell casings in the car, right?
I didn't see anything in my car.
No shell casings, right?
I didn't look for any, but no.
That was all you had, so you drove it pretty often, correct?
Yes.
And the many times that you drove that car, you never once found a shell casing inside of it, correct?
Yes.
When Mr. Abate says shell casing, do you know what he means?
From the gun.
What do you think, when you are thinking shell casing, what are you thinking of?
From the bullet.
The little thing that ejects when you shoot?
Mhm.
Okay, and you didn't find any of those in your car at any point in the year after this shooting?
No.
And when you would have shot the man you had been talking to, you would have been seated, I guess, kind of lean back, like you're driving a car,
I've been setting up. I was setting up.
right?
Yes.
And he's standing over you, right?
Yes.
And that's when you shot him.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said you called your sister Jessica, and you told your attorney that you told her exactly what happened that night, correct?
Yes.
And Jessica lived in New York then and lives in New York now?
Yes.
And is she older or younger than you?
Is older.
How much older?
1 year.
1 year?
Yes.
Okay. And what does she do for a living?
She works at a luggage store.
A luggage store?
Yes, an
Okay.
upscale luggage store.
And you would agree after you called Jessica, she never called 911 or reached out to any police agencies here in Atlanta, correct?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, after you spoke to Jessica that night and told her what happened to you, you guys are pretty close, right?
Yes,
And you spoke to her hundreds of times from the time that the incident occurred until the time you were arrested, correct?
yes,
And all of those hundreds of times, she never told you that she called any sort of 911 or any sort of law enforcement agency during that time, correct?
not that I know of.
Okay. And you went to Valerie's house, right?
Yes,
And you talked to her,
yes,
and you told the judge and your attorney that you told her, I guess, a shorter or abbreviated version, right?
yes.
And can you tell me what you told her?
Can
Hmm?
Okay. I just told her that some guy attacked me. I shot him and he crashed into the building.
Okay. And when you told her that some guy had attacked you, did you tell her that he tried to sexually assault you?
I believe I used attack.
Okay. And how long had Jessica been living here locally in East Point?
Valerie lives in East Point. Jessica lives in New York.
Excuse me, Valerie, I apologize. How long had Valerie been here in East Point?
Probably over 7 years.
Okay. And I know you said you and Valerie were not as close as you and Jessica, but when you went to her house that night, the place that you said that you believed to be home, was that the last time that you saw her from that night until the time you were arrested?
No.
No. And in those times, you spoke to Valerie on multiple occasions between the night that this happened and the date of your arrest in December of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And all of those times, did she ever tell you that she called 911 after you told her that you were attacked and you defended yourself?
No.
And well, did you ask her to call 911?
No.
Did you ask her to call any sort of law enforcement for help?
No.
Were you injured?
Mentally.
Or were you physically injured?
No.
And you said you only stayed at Valerie's house for sounds like a couple minutes.
Yes.
And why?
Because I didn't live there anymore.
So because you didn't live there anymore, you had to go after this traumatic experience? Yes.
Yes.
And you went back to where you were staying in Clayton County, right?
Yes, sir.
And where was that? What hotel or motel?
The suite. It's a suite on Tower Boulevard.
So you don't remember the name of the hotel or the motel you were staying at, correct?
I know the name of the hotel.
What is it?
Hmm. Okay. It is.
Let me ask another question, maybe help your memory. How long had you been at this hotel?
or I stayed there about a month.
Okay. And you lived there alone, right?
Yes,
And you talked on direct that after you told both of your sisters, you in September told the father of your daughter, Jeffrey Williams.
yes,
And you said you told him at your, I guess it would be his father or your quasi father-in-law, right?
yes,
And you said it was you, Jeffrey, his wife. Was his father there too when you told everyone?
no,
Okay, so it's just the three of you?
yes, I was there seeing my daughter.
Okay, and I'm assuming when you were talking about how you had been assaulted and shot someone, your daughter wasn't around, right?
Yes,
Okay, and after you told Mr. Williams and his wife, Miss Williams,
mhm.
what did they do?
I don't know, I was crying when I told them. They told me I need to get help and stay out of the streets.
And I believe you told us on direct that at that point, he wasn't working for DeKalb County, right?
Yes,
But he was working security though, correct?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay. And before you left his father's house in Stockbridge, while you were there, nobody at that point called for help or reported what occurred that night, right?
Yes,
Did you still have your gun in your, I guess, in your sunroof?
I still had my gun.
Okay. And what did you do? Where's the gun now?
I lost all of my property at this hotel I was staying at.
The hotel that we've been talking about or a different hotel?
A different hotel in Stone Mountain.
When you say you lost all your property, if you kept the gun in your car, how did you lose what was in your car?
It wasn't in my car because I stopped driving that car at some point and I moved into this hotel room.
In Stone Mountain?
Yes,
And then what, did you get removed from the hotel and they separated your property, or it was a burglary? How did you lose your property?
I was afraid, so I left there.
You left the hotel and left your gun behind?
I left all of my stuff.
Afraid because of this situation or something else that was going on? I'm not going to ask about the something else. I just need to know if it was afraid about this situation or there was something else going on in your life.
It was. I was I thought I was at risk of being sex trafficked. So I was scared. I was very scared at that time
Because of this case or something else that was happening in your life?
because this had traumatized me and then other stuff that was going on too.
Okay, so you left things behind, all your stuff, including the gun we've seen on the screen. That's the last you saw of it.
I went to go over there to see if I can recover my stuff, but yes,
So the gun's gone and you don't know where it is, right?
yes.
Now, do you recall Detective Thorpe calling you on May 19th of 2020?
That was the phone call we had.
Well, do you remember talking to him back in 2022, excuse me, in May of 2022?
Yes,
And do you remember telling him when he asked, did you know anything about?
Are you able to take the picture down unless you're going to ask more questions about it? Thanks.
Do you remember him asking you if you knew anything about what happened on Auburn Avenue, Jesse Hill Drive, that intersection on August 29th of 2020?
Yes,
And do you remember telling him that you had no idea what he was talking about?
yes,
And do you remember him telling you that he had a recording between you and Mr. Williams where you were admitting to being involved in the shooting that night? Remember that?
yes.
And do you remember telling him that's impossible?
I don't recall saying that.
Okay. Do you recall when he told you there was a recording, you said that you didn't know of one or one didn't exist, correct?
Um, I recall me saying to him that to get back to me when he does have the recording, when I can hear it, when he does have it.
Okay, so your recollection is when he told you that he had a recording, your response was, when you get it, call me back?
Contact me. Yes,
Okay, but you told us here today that you knew that there was a recording and that Officer Williams or Mr. Williams was recording you on his body cam at the time that you and him had that conversation in May of 2022.
yes,
Okay, and it's your testimony that when he called you, you knew he was on duty?
yes,
How'd you know he was on duty?
because he worked that night.
How did you know that?
Be- Are you talking about Jeffrey Williams?
How'd you know he was working that night when you guys spoke about what happened on August 29th of 2020?
I knew that he worked at night, so
So you assumed he was working, so you assumed he was recording. Is that what you're saying?
once I FaceTimed him, so once I saw that he was working, I knew that it would be recorded.
When you
Okay.
say you saw he was working, meaning he was in full uniform.
Yes.
And it's your testimony because that you saw that he was working in the FaceTime call, that he would be recording. And on that recording, you would be heard, I guess, asking him to help you turn yourself in, right?
Yes,
Would you be surprised that on that recording, you never once talk about turning yourself in?
I know I asked him for help.
Okay, and you would agree that if Mr. or Officer Williams was, you spoke to him a lot when he was working, correct? Over the years.
Yes,
So he would have hundreds of phone calls or conversations with you recorded on his body cam. If you always knew when you guys talked, when he was on duty, he was recording, correct?
I knew that they'd probably be recorded.
Okay,
Yes,
so why not ask him to help you turn yourself in when he became a DeKalb County police officer soon after this incident?
the time wasn't right for me.
And if you knew he was recording and you confessed or talked about what happened that night because you knew he was recording, why deny that the recording exists when Detective Thorpe asked you about it?
Because I hoped that he would just hear it and would want to help me or bring me in.
But instead, you lied about talking to Mr. Williams to Detective Thorpe, correct?
I never lied about that.
Well, when Detective Thorpe asked you, didn't you tell Officer Williams about what happened on Auburn Avenue that night, you said, no, I didn't?
That's not the way he worded it.
Yeah, well, how did he word it?
He said, I was told you have information about a homicide that happened on Auburn Ave.
Okay. And when he said that to you, what did you say to him?
I said, no, sir.
Okay. So you said, no, sir, I don't have any information, right?
Yes,
You'd agree that's a lie.
yes,
And he, after you said that, he said, you know, I have a recording where you are talking about shooting someone on Auburn Avenue with just Jeffrey Williams, correct?
yes.
And you said to him, no, you don't. There is no recording, correct?
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
I said, if there's a record, I said, I remember speaking to him about a couple of things, but I didn't remember exactly what we spoke about that day. And I told him, I said, when you do get the recording, reach out to me.
But you'd agree that he told you he had the recording in that phone call, right?
But yes,
Okay. And after you had a conversation with Detective Thorpe, then after you were arrested, you spoke to Detective Thorpe again, right?
yes,
And he asked you if you were in the area of Auburn Avenue, August 29th of 2020, right?
yes.
And you said no.
Did I?
If you don't remember, that's, I mean, it's your answer.
I don't remember.
Okay. And he asked you if you shot someone on Auburn Avenue on August 29th, 2020, right?
Yes,
You said, no, I don't know what you're talking about, right?
yes,
And then he again told you that he had a recording of you telling Mr. Williams that you had shot someone that night, right?
yes.
And you said, no, you don't.
I said, I don't remember the conversation that we had that night.
My question was, he asked you about whether there was a recording, and you said there wasn't one, correct?
I knew I was recorded. I
You knew you were recorded, but when he asked you about a recorded conversation, you said you didn't know about one, correct?
said, I can't recall what we spoke about on the phone that day.
Meaning you couldn't recall what you and Mr. Williams had spoken about, or you were telling Detective Thorpe, I know you called me a few months ago, I don't remember what we talked about.
What me and Mr. Williams spoke about.
Okay, so it wasn't, there's no recording, it was, I don't know what it was that Mr. Williams and I talked about.
Yes,
And when you were talking with Detective Thorpe that night, you didn't tell him that you shot the victim, correct?
yes, I didn't tell him that.
You didn't tell him that you were even in the area, right?
Yes, no, I didn't tell him that.
You didn't tell him you've been sexually assaulted, right?
Yes,
And that you were scared, right?
yes,
And you didn't tell him that you had to fight for your life, correct?
that's true.
And you didn't give him the gun, right?
No, I did not.
In fact, you didn't give him any evidence, right?
I told him about my car, the Acura.
The things you're talking about right now, this exchange you're having with Mr. Abate, this was from December of last year when you were arrested and the marshals brought you to meet with Detective Thorpe, or is it a different time?
December.
So you've only had 2 conversations with Investigator Thorpe. There was the quick one on the phone where you said effectively, I don't know what you're talking about. Then we fast forward, you get arrested and you agree to speak with Investigator Thorpe. And that's when you're saying, I wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about, when he got more specific. Okay. I just didn't want to confuse the two. Thank you.
I don't think I have anything further at this time, Your Honor.
I've got a couple questions and I am confident that Ms. Gordon has a few questions for you. Ms. Brownmore, you told me you're left-handed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The shots that you fired would have been fired right-handed.
Yes,
The knife, when you had it in your clenched hand, as you've demonstrated, it was closed at the time.
yes,
So blade is folded up into the handle.
yes.
Okay. Did you fire the gun with your right hand until it was empty? You kept pulling the trigger till nothing came out?
No, I stopped before that
How do you know you didn't empty it if you didn't know how many bullets were in it?
because after there were still bullets in the gun.
Okay, I mean, you checked the magazine sometime later.
Yes,
Okay, so since you checked the magazine sometimes later, are you able to estimate? Did you fire once, 6 times? I don't know how big the magazine is.
no, because I don't know how many were in there to start.
Okay, how many fit in that magazine?
I think it was 11.
11. And do you remember how many were left when you checked the magazine? Because if there were 10 left, you could have only fired 1, unless did you keep 1 in the chamber as well? So you actually had 12 bullets in your gun? If the magazine was full. Okay. Do you think you fired more than once?
Yes,
Okay, you're just not sure how many more times than once. Did your Acura, which was old, have power windows?
yes.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Just one moment, Judge.
Sure, take your time.
Destiny, I just have a few additional questions for you. Mr. Abadi asked you on cross about the closing time at PALS.
Yes,
Do you know what the official closing time at PALS is or was at that time?
6 a.m.
Okay. When you called it an after hours spot, what do you mean by that?
It's a spot that you go to after the normal clubs are closed about 2, 3 o'clock, and they stay open till 6 a.m.
Okay. When you and this man in white were struggling over the knife, we've been over a couple of times, the knife was closed and in your left hand, right? Okay. When you, I think you testified on cross and on direct that at some point you released your grip on that knife. Is it possible that when you released your grip, it ended up in the hand of the man who had been trying to get it from you?
That's the only way it could have gotten outside of my car.
Okay. When did you start your car?
When I first got into it,
Before he started talking to you?
yes,
Okay, so you didn't start your car when, after you punched him and closed the door, it had already been started?
yes,
Okay, was your car, okay. You talked about leaving all your belongings behind at a hotel in Stone Mountain. and you talked about having a fear of being sex trafficked. What was that fear? Where did that fear come from?
But before you answer that, I'm going to let you explore that because it came out when I was asking her a question. But I just was trying to understand if the leaving the gun behind was, Thorpe just called me. And so I don't want the gun to be found, or if there were other reasons, because Ms. Brown-Moore had said she was scared and that's why she left the property behind. So I'm not curious in a sense of resolving the immunity motion about what else was going on. I don't know that it's particularly relevant because this would have been well after the incident, so it doesn't inform self-defense. So you should feel free to explore it. But if you're exploring it because you're thinking, how's the judge going to weigh this and all this? It's not. It was in that very narrow issue of what were you scared such that you left the gun behind? And the answer was, well, partly this investigation and the shooting that happened, but other things that were going on in her life. So I don't want to probe that anymore for this woman, given what she said she was worried about. You should feel free to do it if you want, but
I'll leave it alone, Judge.
great.
Mr. Abate asked you a lot about details of other things that were going on around the time of August 2020. Is there any reason why you might not remember some of those details, but you remember this incident very clearly?
Because it was traumatizing.
Okay. And Mr. Abate also focused at the end of his cross on the fact that you, and I want to be very clear about this, you lied to Investigator Thorpe, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you lied to this court at all here today?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Destin.
Mr. Abate, anything else for this witness?
Very few questions. You said on direct that you, after this incident, so soon after, you Googled or searched self-defense, correct?
Yes.
And you said after you did that, that prompted you not to turn yourself in, correct?
It scared me.
And did you know that the type of gun that you have, the 9mm, that when you fire a bullet out of it, that the shell casings go back and to the right?
No.
And you would agree that your testimony was that when you shot that gun, you were seated inside the front seat of your vehicle and pointing the gun out towards the victim, correct?
I pointed the gun. Yes.
And when you shot that gun, it was inside your car, correct?
Yes.
And did you know that there are 4 shell casings found outside of your vehicle?
I did not know that.
Did you know that the trajectory of the wounds that Mr. Hundahl experienced after you shot him are steeply downward?
What does that mean?
That they're down. Steeply, like a steep hill that's pointed down. Did you know that?
So what would that mean then?
Well, just, did you know that?
No.
Okay. Nothing further.
All right. Ms. Gordon, I recognize that those questions aren't evidence. They're probing your client's understanding of things. So you're welcome to ask anything more about that. But if that's going to become part of the record, I need to consider it would come in through one or more of the witnesses that Mr. Abate plans to call on another day. Any other questions for Ms. Brown-Moore?
Just briefly, Destiny, when you fired those shots, were you paying attention to what was happening with the man in white's body, where his body was or what his body was doing?
No.
That's all, Judge.
Okay. Ms. Brown-Moore, I appreciate your testimony. If you would allow the deputy to get you back to the table. And while that's happening, I will note that we are at 4:55. I feel bad for Ms. Brown-Moore's sisters in that they may have been, well, one has been waiting outside and another's been hovering virtually This was central to the findings I need to make, to have a thorough, direct and cross-examination of Ms. Brown Moore. And that has exhausted 3 hours, as it should. So both sides had all the time they needed to examine Ms. Brown Moore, and we'll need to find another window to have part 2 of this. Ms. Gordon, it sounds like your best estimate is, I'll say, less than an hour. That would include cross-examination for your 2 witnesses total. Because you had said 20.
I don't know that I'm comfortable being held to that, Judge. I would say that my direct examination of each sister would maybe be 20 or 30 minutes max.
Okay.
I cannot say how long the cross.
I appreciate that, but that just grew because I thought before you said maybe it would be 20, now it's 20 to 30. So we better build in hour and a half-ish or more for the rest of your case. And I'm not time limiting it. I'm trying to figure out, I have to get with Ms. Nelson to see where do we find room for part 2. Your 2 witnesses could be available pretty much anytime, assuming we can still virtually connect New York sister.
I think we should be able to work it out. They were pretty flexible with today.
Okay, and they'll know, they'll be first up next time, so it won't be, we have to wait for 3 hours.
Right, and as soon as I hear from Ms. Nelson, they'll be my first calls.
Okay, Mr. Bate, then Ms. Gordon will rest and you'll be able to call witnesses. I think you now have a pretty good sense of what the defense case is, because it sounds like there's simply going to be corroboration of what Ms. Brown Moore had to say. So you should have a better idea of how many witnesses you want or need to call. You don't need to detail that with me other than to give me a sense of how much time you'd need to put up your side of the immunity case.
If I decide to do that 20 minutes, I can imagine 1 or 2 witnesses.
Okay,
And it would be the medical examiner who would be very quick, and then.
it sounds like that would be the angle of the wounds and where they entered.
And then I would call Detective Thorpe because he'll now be available, so I wouldn't have to call. Today I was planning to call Summer Benton and Sergeant Layton because he was at a doctor's appointment. Now I don't have to do that.
Got it. And he'd be able to talk about interactions and I guess whatever was found at the crime scene.
Yes. And
Okay.
then there's Officer Williams, who would be very short.
Okay. So if we find if we find a morning or an afternoon, that's going to be plenty of time, it sounds like. What you all need to do is let me know if something changes and you realize, wait, there's this other witness I need to call and she's a 2-hour witness. But otherwise, I'll look with Ms. Nelson for a morning or an afternoon in the near future. Any leave in the next couple of weeks, Ms. Gordon?
Let me just reference my calendar here, Judge. I am leaving town around 4:30 p.m. on July 6th, and I'll be out of town on the 7th. I have some other court obligations. And then I don't know if we would go this far. I will be teaching at TILP from the 19th to the 21st.
TILP would be what?
It's the new public defender training program.
Okay. I'd like to do it before then. So it sounds like between now and the week of the 17th, the bad day is the 7th.
Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, I do have some other court obligations in there. Most of those are things that I can likely
Palm off.
get a colleague to cover for me.
All right. Mr. Abate, tell me about your availability. Whenever. The usual. I wish that was true. Okay. I'll get with Ms. Nelson and we'll try to find something soon so that we can close out the evidence and I can get to work on drafting and then issuing an order. Ms. Gordon, anything else at this time on behalf of Ms. Brown Moore?
No, Judge.
Mr. Bate, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thanks, folks. Thank you, Ms. Rivers.
Okay.